Hi guys, this is gsn.com and I'm here with a review of the Nokia X20, also known as the Nokia X20 5G. It's a mid-range handset with quite the massive body and a price tag of $400. It's got a quad camera at the backside, there's the Zeiss logo here, and it promises to deliver a competent package at not so small of a price compared to its rivals. Also, one of the selling points is the software, a clean Android experience with a promise of no less than 3 years of updates, which is not bad. So, I'm going to start off with the design first and foremost. The device is made of plastic and is rather massive. This is the Scandinavian blue hue that we have here. There's also a bronze one, which I actually like better. So, plastic all the way, 9.1 millimeters in thickness, which is a bit beefy, and weighs a hefty 220 grams. It's both wide and long, and not easy to wield with a single hand, that's for sure. Aside from that, I can also see we have a big chin here with the Nokia logo inscribed on it, but the grip is quite fine, so you will not drop the device, that's for sure. And I also noticed that the bezels are quite big. I'm talking about the side ones, not just the chin. Maybe even bigger than the Galaxy A52 and A72. The camera doesn't protrude very much, so that's the good news, and the slightly rounded back and edges help with the grip. The build is fine, even though it's only plastic here. Now, if you look at the sides, you're going to see the power button here, volume buttons here on the right side, and on the left side an extra button which is used to trigger Google Assistant. That's pretty much it. If you're expecting a large phone and one that's, I would say, decently built for a mid-range, this is the device for you. If you have smaller hands and desire a smaller phone, it may not be for you. Now, as far as the screen is concerned, the panel you're seeing here, it's a 6.67-inch IPS LCD, and at the same time it has a resolution of 2400 over 1080 pixels. It has 20:9 aspect ratio, Gorilla Glass 5 protection, and I'll say it again, big bezels. And another large punch hole at the top side, I'm sure you noticed that. Let's actually check out a video playback here so you can see how the screen behaves. Now, as you can see, the punch hole is a bit distracting on account of its size. The colors are pretty nicely calibrated, even though a bit shyer than I've seen on AMOLEDs or even some LCDs. Brightness is fine, at least indoors, and when you tilt the device, there's a bit of grayness that appears. This grayness doesn't exactly affect the viewing experience very much, but it's noticeable. Okay, so in the sun, the contrast left a bit to be desired, so it's not a very visible panel, a very legible panel once you go outdoors on a sunny day. The pixels have an RGB stress arrangement, and when it comes to the brightness, we measure that using a lux meter, and here's what we achieved. Okay, so let's close this first. We achieved 348 lux units, which is not exactly bad. We come after a few phones which only reached 270 or so. Anyway, with this value here, we're close to the 400 lux threshold, which is usually a sign that things are going fine. With this result, we surpassed the Huawei P Smart 2021, Motorola Moto G30, and Galaxy A32 5G. We stayed below the Xiaomi Mi 11 Lite 5G and also the Realme 8 Pro. There are also some special settings for the screen, which you're going to find in a dedicated settings area. So you go here, display, you got your brightness, dark theme, night light, adaptive brightness, white balance, where you can adjust color temperature, and we also have wallpaper, auto rotate, and font size. I would say a pretty okay display, but nothing more than that, and especially the behavior in sunlight may pose some problems. Now, if you go inside the phone, you're going to find a CPU we actually dealt with recently, Qualcomm Snapdragon 480 5G. We've also seen this 8nm octa-core chip on the OnePlus Nord N200 5G, Nokia X10, and the Moto G50. It's not alone, it comes accompanied by 8 gigs of RAM. There's also a version with 6 and 120 gigabytes of storage and plus microSD card slot. Now, the device, having an 8nm CPU, doesn't suffer from lag, so that's fine. And you can even go ahead and run a few games on it. There will be no problem, even with PUBG Mobile. Details will be just fine. More relevant are the benchmarks we've done, and let's see some of them. So let me start off with Antutu 8. In Antutu 8, as you can see, we're just above the LG Velvet, and it's Snapdragon 765, which is actually not that bad. We also beat the Moto G50 and the Galaxy A32 5G, but we stayed below the Redmi Note 10 Pro and the Galaxy A72 4G, as well as the OnePlus Nord N10 5G. This was Antutu 8, just reminding you. Geekbench 5, here we are with the multi-core subtest, just slightly above the Galaxy A72 4G and the Motorola G50, Moto G50, we're in pretty nice company, beating Nokia 8.3 5G, which is a bit of a shocker for me. At the same time below Realme 8 and Realme 8 5G, as well as Poco X3 NFC, which is by no means a powerhouse. Then we go to the 3D Mark Slingshot Extreme, which caters to your gaming and GPU needs. Here we're once again fighting and beating the Galaxy A72 4G, Realme 6, and also the OnePlus Nord N10 5G. And once again, Poco X3 NFC is above us, as well as the Realme 8, and this time the Galaxy A52 5G. So I would say this device is superior to the Galaxy A72 4G, and it should be able to fight on equal terms phones which have a similar CPU. The performance is not bad, but let's see just how future-proof it will be after about 2 years. When it comes to the temperature, we go here, and in benchmarks we achieved 39 degrees Celsius, and in games we achieved 44.9 degrees Celsius. So yes, there is overheating if you really stress it for dozens of minutes with intensive games. As far as the battery is concerned, you can see it right here, 4470 mAh. For such a phone, such a huge phone, 5000 would have been nice, but let's see what we achieved. So when it comes to video playback, we reached 14 hours and 34 minutes of video playback, and it's just an okay result. I mean, nowadays we've seen phones going past the 20-hour mark easily. So with this value, it surpasses Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite, Galaxy A51 and Moto G100, and also the Huawei P40 Lite 5G. They're almost equal actually. It stays below the OnePlus Nord Core Edition 5G and the Galaxy A32 5G, plus the Moto G50. Now in PC mark, it reaches 10 hours and 22 minutes. I would say it's typical for a mid-range phone, not a record breaker, but let's see which devices it beats. Now with this value you see here, 10 hours and 22 minutes, we were able to surpass the AllView Soul X Opt Pro and the Nokia 6.2, but we stayed below the OnePlus Nord CE 5G, Galaxy A72 and Realme 8 Pro. I should probably also mention that Nokia, or better said HMD, didn't bundle a charger here, so we had to take things into our own hands and use other chargers from other devices. One attempt was using a OnePlus 6T charger, which led us to 3 hours and 30 minutes of juicing up the device up to 100%, while the other attempt involved an iPhone 11 Pro charger, which only required 2 hours and 19 minutes. And after 30 minutes we were at 42%, not exactly bad, but also definitely not a record breaker by any means. When it comes to acoustics, things are pretty simple. Don't expect stereo. We got mono, we got a singular speaker here and the audio jack right here. I also want to check if we have FM radio. Yes, we do. FM radio is in the house, and I think it's time we started the music. Okay, so a bit noisy, a bit distorted at top volume. I bet you can also hear that. The volume is satisfying, I would say, not the loudest in the world, but still pretty loud. No bass for sure, but the high notes were well represented here. If you're listening to EDM and guitar solos, you'll be happy. If you want hip hop and tunes with a lot of bass, you won't be that happy. There's no punch to this speaker, there's distortion. You should lower the volume probably to enjoy the music better. These are the volume measurements we took. The bottom speaker wielded 90.1 decibels with our acoustic sample test. It's actually not that bad. It beats OnePlus Nord Core Edition 5G, Galaxy A32 5G, stays below Xiaomi Mi 10 Lite 5G and Huawei P40 Lite 5G. When it comes to gaming, we usually want to see a value which is closer to something like 100 decibels. In this case it's actually lower, so we go here, let's see, 95.4 decibels. I mean, it's not terrible, but we wanted at least 98, 99 or even 100. With this value we at least surpass Xiaomi Mi 11 Lite 5G and the Redmi Note 10 5G. At the same time, we're quite a bit below Galaxy A32 5G and OnePlus Nord Core Edition 5G, of course. Time to discuss the cameras. So here in this large punch hole there's a 32 megapixel shooter with full HD capture and fixed focus, while at the back side there's a quad camera with Zeiss optics and this LED flash. The quad camera includes a 64 megapixel main shooter, there's a 5 megapixel ultra-wide camera, 2 megapixel macro and 2 megapixel bokeh, the ones at the bottom. Sadly, we only have full HD capture at 30 or 60 frames. There's no trace of 4K, which I find to be quite a bummer. It's 2021 after all, phones are filming in 8K. Okay, so let's see the gallery of shots we've taken here. I have quite a few of them. It was a pretty sunny day, so let's start. Okay, so first things first, we have some very intense greens. The green hue is intense here and there's a bit of overexposure on account of the strong sun. Maybe not as much as you've seen on some of those $200 phones out there. That's basically a compliment. Now the clarity is fine if you stick to the main camera. And the ultra-wide one isn't that bad, but sometimes it shows its limits. I'm talking particularly about the fact that you're going to notice some discoloration and some loss of details, especially on the side. So this is a regular shot and this is an ultra-wide shot. I mean, it's not bad and all, but if you look on the sides, details are pretty muffled and you're definitely seeing some curves here and there. Okay, moving forward, trying to get to more colorful subjects, and here we are with the selfies. I mean, they're not bad, the eyes are pretty expressive and the face is pretty well rendered, but what's behind me is very noisy. That's what I noticed, some noisy backgrounds here, and it's not a very constant camera, it can be a bit hit and miss. If you want more of the hit and less of the miss, stick to the bokeh capture, which actually manages to capture my face perfectly, separate it from the background, give more texture to the skin, the eyes and the wrinkles, sadly. And here we have colors. I'll say it again, colors aren't bad here, unless you count the vegetation and the sky, which have a bit of a problem. But in general, artificial objects are well represented on camera color-wise. We attempted to create some macros here and the results are decent, but not more than that. There's something out of 2019 when the macro cameras were starting on phones rather than 2021. I mean, they're fine, but I think that close-ups will serve the phone better. An attempt at zooming in. I mean, on this small screen may look fine, but it's nowhere near the Huawei P40 Lite 5G, which last year and even now remains a landmark for digital zooming, believe it or not. More colors here, once again pretty crisp and spot on. Especially the reds and the blues are well represented. This is a bokeh with the back camera, pretty well done, it's separating the subject. We got really up close and personal with Elmo, I think that's the name, and I'm happy to inform you that close-ups are excellent here, even when you're not taking macros. These roses have a very weird color. In real life they were nowhere near this colorful. They're actually red. Here they have a purple tint, so once again, the plants not very well represented by this camera. Doesn't feel like a $400 or $450 phone for sure. It's superior to those $200 phones. It can maybe fight something like the Realme 8 and the Realme 8 Pro. It's somewhere in between them, closer to the Realme 8 Pro, of course minus the crazy details and the crazy zoom. It's also similar to the Galaxy A51 or just slightly below it. Now let's see the low light pictures. Okay, so these are the low light pictures we've taken in a different city, and I mean to say that they don't look bad, so they're actually quite nice, unless you count those ultra wide ones, which are a bit disappointing. They're not very clear, and also the lights are weird, and of course details are totally lacking, so you're better off with a main camera and an amazing night mode. If you stick to that, it actually surpasses expectations. I mean, things aren't bad. You can definitely use this on a touristic occasion, on a trip, on a vacation, but avoid ultra wide and maybe use the night mode more often than not. We have several frames here which can easily go in your travel album without regrets. With decent light sizes, a rather good amount of light captured, and also enough details of the building's facade to make it into your gallery. So all in all, I would say it's a fine experience comparable with other phones around $400. This has been the photo section. Let's talk about the videos. We have an app here and a total of 12 clips to analyze. Okay, so the first one is the stabilization test. We're descending stairs, and I have to say that stabilization isn't half bad here. We're descending stairs quite fast, and there's a bit of a, I would say, strafe motion. If you've played the shooter, that's the vibe I'm getting. It feels like you're strafing in a game, but at the same time you're not losing stabilization, so that's fine. Okay, we go further and look for colors, and as you can see here, there's a lot of light capture. The vegetation is too lit, too exposed, but the colors are satisfying. The zoom is pretty smooth, even though you're losing details fast. I especially love the blue hues here and also the reds. But once again, dynamic range feels a bit limited, especially if you're capturing sunnier areas. Okay, let's see the selfie video. It's a bit soft in the details and a bit noisy, and the background behind me vibrates quite a bit. So you will not make a vlogging career out of this phone for sure. This is the focus test, close-up and background, alternating between them. Reasonably fast focus, maybe not as fast as a Samsung phone, but still reasonably fast. Okay, and maybe one more. This is the dual side capture, capturing with the back camera and the front camera at the same time, sort of like a making of. And we also have this one here for extra colors, quite crisp and clear. This is one example where the vegetation is fine, exposure-wise, probably because we are in the shade, not in the full sun. And the way the exposure changes when panning is also quite satisfying, so not bad overall. But also, when we're lacking 4K, well, that's a big problem for me. And this is the low light capture. I mean, it's pretty shaky and noisy, a bit too yellow for my taste. The yellow hue is too intense. It's also rather gray and pixelated in the corners and edges. The microphone is good, it captured the ambience pretty well, but nothing to write home about overall. Okay, so we're done with that, and I think it's time to talk about connectivity. At the bottom we have an USB-C 2.0 port. This phone has 4G and 5G connectivity. It also provides you with single or dual SIM versions, and we have Wi-Fi dual band here in case you were wondering, Bluetooth 5.0, and GPS, GLONASS, Galileo take care of the global positioning, while NFC is also available if you want to make payments with this handset. FM radio is available as well, plus the calls were loud and clear. And when we're talking about connectivity, we definitely have to show you some of these results. So I would say they're decent, but not more than that. I've seen phones going higher than this, up to 221 megapers in 4G tests, and that's download, and 52.3 megapers upload. When it comes to Wi-Fi, 241 over 312, that's the download and upload. And I would say they're fine once again, but I feel like I've seen better on similarly priced phones. As far as the OS is concerned, not much to say here. It's Android 11 in a stock version, and Nokia doesn't like to change things. They like to leave things as they are. You just saw me using the fingerprint scanner in the power button. I mean, it's not very fast, but I would say it's pretty accurate when recognizing the print. We're getting 3 years of Android updates. We're getting a news feed here on the leftmost home screen, and we're also using gestures to navigate around. This is the recent section, and of course you can apply split screen for multitasking. Widgets, let's activate them. Widgets are everything stock, of course. Swipe down and you're treated to the notifications and also the quick settings, once again stock. And here are the actual settings for connectivity, apps, display, sound, storage, privacy with permissions and a permission manager and all that. We have a notification history, we have the security section, digital well-being and parental control are part of the experience, and that's pretty much it. Other thing worth mentioning, well, let's see if we have any interesting pre-installed apps. We have the typical Google package with Chrome, there's Files, there's Duo, there's Drive. We also have Gmail, Google One, Keep, Maps, We also have pre-installed Netflix and the Play Suite, Play Games, Play Store, have photos, have podcasts, and of course YouTube and YouTube Music. Well, that's about it. No bloatware whatsoever. And since it's time for the verdict, I think I'm going to play a game so you can actually see how the phone is handling video games. This is Free Fire. It's a battle royale game. It's been set to ultra graphics wise, and just as we recap the pros and cons, you're going to witness us playing the game. Okay, so on the pro side we have an okay build and a pretty nice grip for this handset. The screen is quite fine indoors. I'm talking about the colors, brightness and a satisfying experience. I should probably also mention that the CPU performance is fine in gaming and everyday activity. We have 3 years of Android updates and a clean Android experience without any bloatware or problem. Also, the video playback time for the battery life is quite solid. Volume is quite satisfying and loud. Good bokeh for both the front and the back camera. And also pretty nifty colors when it comes to man-made objects rather than vegetation. I'm also happy with the stabilization, believe it or not, when filming. Connectivity is, I would say, reasonably fast, no record breaker, just reasonably fast. And stock software is also a pro. On the con side, I would probably go ahead and mention that the device is pricey, pricier than it should be at least. It's a massive phone, a large and heavy device. It tends to overheat when you're gaming for a long time. Also, there's no charger in the box. The continuous usage was a bit underwhelming. The charging is long, there's not much bass for the bottom speaker, and some distortion appears when you're listening to music. The ultrawide camera leaves a bit to be desired. We don't have 4K video capture, and we don't have stereo speakers. So I know it feels like there's quite a list, but you're getting an honest impression from us. Now, if this phone were $250, there would be a whole different story. But even at this price, we've come to expect 4K filming, stereo speakers, and maybe a higher battery life. Just maybe. Okay, just got a kill here. So once again, Nokia, or better said HMD, is not on the best streak available. We didn't quite enjoy the Nokia 8.3. We didn't quite enjoy the Nokia 6.2 and 7.2. So we're still waiting for a phone which can excite us as much as the Nokia 8.1 did. Still waiting for that. What this phone excels at is, I would say, multimedia consumption indoors. And maybe some filming and close-up photos and bokeh photos, but that's about it. These are basic tasks which most phones can deliver. It can handle gaming, but you should be careful with overheating. And that's about it as far as the review is concerned. You should make your decision only if you check out all the available offers. Maybe you can find it cheaper. It's not worth $450 or $400. Maybe closer to $300, and that's being generous. That's it from us. Bye bye.